Sun Tzu never told you to fight. Everyone quotes him like he was a general handing out battle plans. Framed prints in office lobbies. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. People hang it on the wall next to a picture of a shark and call it motivation. They've never read past the first page. Because if they had, they'd know the book isn't about winning wars. It's about avoiding them. And that single distinction is the part nobody selling you warrior mindset wants you to hear. 2,500 years ago, in a kingdom drowning in war, a strategist named Sun Tzu was asked to prove himself. The king of Wu didn't believe in him. So he handed Sun Tzu 180 palace concubines and told him to turn them into soldiers. A joke, a test, a way to watch a theorist fail in public. Sun Tzu split them into two companies. Put the king's two favorite concubines in command. Explained the drill once, clearly, then gave the order. They laughed. He explained it again, word for word, patient, calm, gave the order a second time. They laughed again. Sun Tzu said the fault was now not in the instruction, but in the officers who received it. And he had the two commanders executed on the spot, in front of the king, in front of everyone. The king panicked. He liked those two women. He sent word begging for their lives. Sun Tzu refused. Once a general is appointed to command, he said, there are certain orders from the king he does not have to accept. He appointed two new commanders, gave the signal. The women drilled in perfect silence, not a sound, not a misstep. That story gets told as proof of discipline, as proof that Sun Tzu was ruthless, that he'd sacrifice anyone for the mission. That's the surface reading. That's the one that gets clipped into a 10-second motivational video with dramatic music behind it. Here's what it's actually about. Sun Tzu didn't win that day by fighting. There was no war. No blade crossed another blade. He won by making disobedience more expensive than obedience, one time decisively, so he'd never have to do it again. The entire war was 2 deaths and then absolute peace. That's the whole doctrine, compressed into one afternoon. The Art of War was written by a man who watched kingdoms bleed themselves to nothing for a century. He wasn't impressed by war. He thought most of it was waste. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle. Not because peace is nice, because war is expensive in ways that don't show up until it's too late to undo them. Sun Tzu measured cost the way an accountant measures cost, not the way a poet does. Every day an army stays in the field, the state grows poorer. Every prolonged siege drains a treasury faster than any enemy can. He wrote that no country has ever benefited from a long war. Full stop, no exceptions, no asterisk for the righteous cause. Winning slowly is still losing. You just don't feel it yet. That's the part people skip, because winning was never the goal in Sun Tzu's framework. Winning cheap was the goal. A victory that costs you your treasury, your best soldiers, your position for the next 10 years. That's not a victory. That's a debt with a parade attached to it. Modern life quotes him the opposite way. Every business book turns him into a mascot for aggression. Know your enemy. Attack where they are weak. People use his name to justify burning relationships, burning health, burning years, all in the name of a win they haven't priced correctly. They're using the vocabulary of a man whose entire philosophy was built on restraint to justify the one thing he kept warning against. He said the skilled fighter wins without appearing skilled. No parade, no highlight reel. Because if the win was visible and dramatic, it means you let the cost run high enough for everyone to see it. The real skill is finishing something before it becomes a story, which is the twist nobody wants because it isn't as fun to post. The takeaway from Sun Tzu was never fight smarter. It was know precisely what a fight will cost you before you enter it and walk away from almost all of them. Most conflicts, most arguments, most competitions people throw themselves into aren't being won. They're being financed slowly out of a budget the person never checked. Time, attention, reputation, peace of mind, all spent chasing a win that, priced honestly, was never worth the fight in the first place. Sun Tzu wasn't a warrior philosophy. He was a cost philosophy wearing armor. The general who executes 2 commanders on day 1 to avoid a war on day 10 isn't proving how ruthless he is. He's proving he did the math before anyone else in the room finished reading the question. There's a second story, less famous, that makes the point even sharper. Centuries after Sun Tzu died, a warlord named Cao Cao, one of the most feared military minds in Chinese history, sat down and annotated The Art of War himself, wrote commentary in the margins, studied it the way a monk studies scripture. And the note historians keep coming back to isn't about tactics. It's Cao Cao warning his own officers that the generals who lose are the ones who go to war angry. Grief, rage, wounded pride, he called them the real enemy, worse than any opposing army, because they make you pay full price for a war you haven't even measured yet. Cao Cao won more battles than almost anyone in his era, and he lost his most catastrophic one, Red Cliffs, a defeat so total it split China into 3 kingdoms. For the next 60 years in the one campaign, historians agree he entered overconfident, underinformed, and unwilling to walk away. He had the largest army South China had ever seen. He lost anyway, because Sun Tzu's math doesn't care how big your force is if you skip the part where you calculate the cost before you commit to it. That's the pattern hiding underneath every chapter of the book. Not how to fight. A 5-part audit you're supposed to run before you ever draw a weapon. The moral cause, the weather, the terrain, the leadership, the discipline. 5 categories. If you can't answer all 5 honestly, Sun Tzu says you already know the outcome, you're just refusing to admit it before it costs you something. Modern readers turn this into a productivity hack. Assess before you act. Fine, but that's the shallow end. The deep end is this. Sun Tzu is telling you that most people don't lose wars because they're weak. They lose because they never ran the audit. They committed on emotion, on pride, on the assumption that trying hard enough substitutes for having actually calculated anything. He wasn't writing for cowards who avoid every fight. He was writing for people smart enough to be terrified of the wrong fight. That's why the book opens the way it does, before a single tactic is mentioned. War is a matter of life and death, a road to survival or ruin, and it must be examined with the greatest care. Not fought with the greatest care. Examined. The decision happens before the war does. Everything after that is just consequence. So next time you're about to go to war over a comment, a job, a person who wronged you, a point you need to win, ask the question Sun Tzu actually asked. Not the one people pretend he asked. Not can I win this? What does winning this actually cost me? And do I still want it once I know the real price? Most fights die right there before the first blow, which was always the point. If this made you see the art of war differently, follow for more of what history's most quoted thinkers actually meant before the internet flattened them into desk quotes.